On this episode of the BlueSky Brothers, it's our special Denver Nuggets season preview blowout episode. We're talking all the new additions. Can Jokic still be good at basketball? Will Ryan take back all those mean things he said about Russell Westbrook? All that and more. Coming up, Dan, play that funky music. Welcome in on a beautiful Thursday night. The Broncos have just kicked the hell out of the Saints, but we're talking NBA action. It's our favorite time of year, Ryan. We've got college football, we're headed towards the playoff. We're in the midst of NFL. We got WNBA finals. What a shot from Ionescu last night. And now we have our favorite team, the Denver Nuggets. We're ready to preview them and the NBA season as a whole. This is our big blowout. We wanted to bring you 2 episodes this week just so we could do this. Ryan, are you as excited as I am here?
Yeah, I am. And you forgot to mention that the Nuggets also won their preseason game tonight. So we're coming in off a high, which is exciting. And yeah, I am personally, the Broncos are winning, right? So it's hard to say this, but I'm so ready to stop caring as much and have an excuse to just start watching the NBA all the time and really putting most of my interest and thought into that instead of thinking about the Broncos for really too much time. They're occupying too much of my time right now.
There's nothing wrong with wanting a little more Jokic in your life. And I think an unbelievable summer from Yoki Doke. I think let's just start there with him. He's a now 3-time MVP. He's awesome. He's awesome. He's the best player we've seen in Denver in our lifetimes by a lot. And I saw recently that Game 5 that he put on the Timberwolves out there where Anthony Edwards was like, I can't even be mad. He's like, he's just the best player in the world. I don't know. He just gave it to us tonight. And so I guess the first question that comes, and then I think we can get into an interesting conversation around here because it feels like a lot of the national discourse is a little more negative around the Nuggets as far as Murray's fallen off. We lost KCP. We've lost Bruce Brown. We've lost Derek Reed. We've just lost a lot of veterans. And it kind of is well, how long can Jokic sustain this level? And I think you did see some areas where he was tired. He was worn down a little bit more than we've seen in past years. And that makes sense. He's getting older. You can't expect him to run the same minutes. But as far as what you expect from this season, do you expect there to be a noticeable drop off? I guess would be the kind of more hot takey way, but enough that we need other players to step up, I guess.
Well, I think it depends on what your expectations are, right? I think a lot of Nuggets fans that are not necessarily paying attention to the rest of the NBA are probably going to come into this with some unrealistic expectations that we're going to walk away with the West and be the number 1 seed and all these things. That's just not the reality of the Western Conference right now. So I think with appropriate expectations, I think he's going to be awesome. I'm not expecting him to drop off in any real noticeable way. This is the same guy that dragged that Facu Campazzo shell of itself to the playoffs and then took a game off of the Warriors. And that was really the series where all of those Warriors afterwards were Jokic is unbelievable. He's so good. You guys do not understand how good he is. And I feel like it started becoming a little bit more cool to give Jokic his flowers after that series because it was just so obvious that the talent deficit was incredible. So I think I'm expecting him to make shit look pretty good. Like, we don't necessarily have the roster depth that we had when we won the championship. I will probably get into this, but I certainly don't feel as good about that. But I feel excellent about Jokic playing unbelievable basketball for 80 games.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few less games where Jokic, because now where you notice it, like Jokic just kind of sleepwalks his way to 25, 10, and 8. But there are some games where Jokic is incredibly engaged on defense, and you just are like, oh, wow, we're like a really good defensive team when he is like really going around trying to, being willing to like really move his feet, quick hands, really contesting everything.
Well, and I
Um,
think another way you can tell when those games are happening is he's communicating so much more. Like, he's
yeah,
so much more active in terms of yelling at coverage
and
because
I
he
think
knows
we'll
what's
see
going to go
less of
on.
those. I think we saw less of them last year than we did the championship year, and I think once again we'll see a little bit less of those. I think that's just the reality of the situation. Um, I think that Jokic just doesn't have it in the tank to do that as many times. I think there are still some games like the Celtics games or games that Jokic is like, hey, good basketball is being played here. Or he just gets fired up for it, then you're going to see those. But I think it's going to be single digit games there. So I don't expect like MVP votes to go for him. I think there's voter fatigue. I think there's um, just a lot of things going against him there.
I think he
Um,
could be unbelievable offensively, though.
I just don't. I think that he is going to be a lot more passive this
I
season.
just don't.
And
I don't know if that's true. I think Jamal could start off slow, and I think Jokic could try to, like, he has to step up. I think in those moments when we don't, like, our offensive unit took a hit. Like, we're gonna have to be really efficient on the offensive end because we don't really have 3-point shooting. So I
yes and no, it took a hit. I mean, yes, KCP is much more of a threat, but also he scored 8 points a game. Like
no,
all of our big guys that we came into last year going, hey, if you want to dance with us,
it's the
dance
threat.
with Porter, dance with Gordon, dance with Jamal, dance with Jokic. They're all
The
back.
threat
And
that I'm
Strother looks
talking
great.
about. You literally don't have to guard Christian Brown right now. So
I don't think that that's as, I think that's going to happen in stretches.
dude,
And
have you
and
seen
we're
him
kind
in the
of
preseason?
jumping all over the place here. But so I guess closing the Jokic thing, yes, I've seen him in the preseason.
But
To answer your question, so to close the Jokic thing, I think to the average fan who just kind of watches stats or looks at a box score at the end of the night, there's not going to be a very noticeable difference in those stats that Jokic puts up night to night. I think to people who really watched the games and really were locked in for that championship run the whole season, they know there were some games that Jokic came into and you just said, oh, we're about to kick your ass. Like there were some Clippers and Memphis games when we were in there for the 1 seed versus, and those teams were kind of moving around with us, that it was just like, oh, Jokic has had quite enough of this competition and he's going to bring it on both ends tonight. And to your point, the communication, the hands, the quick hands, all that stuff was just all over the place. And you're just like, yeah, you're probably losing tonight, man. So I think that puts a bow on the Jokic. And I think now that gets us into some of our other things. You brought up Christian Brown, as I call him. The question is, Strother again has looked unbelievable. Christian, I think, will start the season as the starter. Do you see a world in which he does not finish as the starter?
yeah,
And I guess what percentage would you put it on? Like, I can obviously see a world in which there's tons of reasons why that could happen.
I think it will happen. Um, so I guess whatever that would be, like 65%. I feel 70%, because I think you'll just need to give it a try, and I think Christian is just so streaky, and it's not that he can't play well. And I want to say that this is almost more matchup dependent than anything. Like, there are definitely going to be times when Julian Strother is closing games, and I think that could happen early in the season where we just don't really need that second guard
Defender.
defender. And you're like, okay, well, if you're not doing that out there, Christian, we're going to go with Julian here. Because I think that's the trade off, right? Is um, the defensive end. So I am excited by Strother. I think that Christian still has that sort of like it factor to me where it's like he can just change a game with energy essentially. And so I still really like Christian, and I am not saying that he's going to lose his starting job because I think he sucks. I think it's just like the upside of a Julian Strother game is so much higher than the upside of a Christian Brown best game. So
Yeah, I think Christian Brown is somewhat tied to Aaron Gordon shooting as well, right? Because we saw in points last year, Aaron Gordon looked a lot better from three. And so if Aaron Gordon is hitting, now you have one below average shooter, and we're fine with that. Christian is always going to be a good cutter, and he gives you a lot of size, and he is a son of a you know what on defense. And so Malone loves that. Um, so in some ways, he's kind of tied to Gordon in an unfair way. I mean, it's not unfair. Make your shots, Christian. You're going to get wide open shots all the time.
it's crazy, dude. How do we have, not to put too fine a point on it, but how do we have the one white guy in the NBA who can't shoot threes? Like, what was Christian doing all summer except why are you not just shooting threes? Like, and it's not just that he is missing. The preseason, he's looked scared, which is
Yeah.
the scary part. Like, it's not, it hasn't,
Here's the
he hasn't even been
here's the
looking
thing
at the
that I'll
basket.
say is that even though Christian has played with Jokic, he has not played with Jokic for real, right? And we have seen this over and over again. When you play with Jokic, you have to get used to the fact that he's going to give you the ball. He's going to put the ball in your hands, and he's going to say, Christian, I'm coming to set a screen for you, buddy. And in your head, you're going to go, why the fuck are you setting a screen for me? Like, I should be setting double and triple screens for you, I think. And he's going to go, no, brother, it's fine. I come here. I'll dive. They'll come with me. Just shoot this 15-footer. It's wide open. And I think we saw Monte take some time to adjust to it. I think we've seen even Jamal took time. Gary Harris took time. KCP. And once you get it and you go, hey, if I just cut hard and pull up here for 15 feet, everyone goes with Jokic. It is free for me. And it was kind of our calm down play last year with KCP. So is that going to be missing? Yes. I think KCP provides a lot of the same on-ball defense stuff and is a little bit more physical, which obviously is something that I think hurt KCP's value to the Nuggets was Anthony Edwards and them being like, hey, you're a little too small there. And I don't think Edwards is going anywhere in the West. We need someone who can guard Anthony Edwards if we're going to pay them our last, money, right? So am I concerned about it? Yes. But to me, the beauty of Jokic and the beauty of this team has always been we do not need a consistent third scorer. We just need someone to come along, right? It's Jokic is going to get people good shots. He's going to and we just need a few people to come along, and all of a sudden you're going to be at 115, 120. And especially in Denver with Westbrook, all that stuff, the pace that I think that second unit is going to put on people, you're going to be fine. So I agree with you. I think it's important for him to stay mentally tough and not put like too much pressure on himself to be like, I've got to be this. No, you don't, dude. Play defense, play hard. And when you're open, let that thing fly, man. Like, don't think about it. Just let that thing fly. And I think he'll be okay. I wanted to ask you here because you talked about the shooting. It's been mentioned a lot in the preseason, and it's been noticeable the amount of off ball movement that Michael Porter Jr. has been doing. He talked about his conditioning, he talked about trying to do more of that stuff. It really seems like the Nuggets are trying to use him a little bit more of a runaround to where you're not getting as many stationary stuff, and you can use Christian and Gordon, who are both very solid, very good screeners, to kind of get them going, get guys confused, get guys on switches, and then you still can have the two-man game on the other side. To me, that feels like a great wrinkle for the Nuggets.
Until the
Do
second
you
that
think it is a regular season change? Or do you think, like, because this team can get so comfortable with the two-man of Murray and Jokic because it's so effective. But do you think this is
I think
something
it's
they'll put
something that
real
we'll
reps
see
in?
in stretches. I don't think it's going to be something that they're running on a regular basis. Like the ball should be in Jokic's hands, and like that stuff is nice, but unless we need it, I don't think it's going to be a regular occurrence in the. But I do think when we're staggering or the second unit or they're staggered with the second unit, then I think it becomes really important because that's all you need around of what Russell Westbrook. So I don't think when Jokic and Murray are on the floor, it's going to happen all that much, but I could see it being something that we throw out. And I think
And
it's
I
really good for the second unit to start getting used to moving like that because to your point, Jokic is so good that you can kind of just stand still. It'll probably get you open somehow, anyways. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's I I am sad that we don't have KCP anymore, but it's also not like people I think are making out to be a much bigger thing than I think it's going to be. Just because I think between these guys that we're talking about and some subtle adjustments, and honestly, people taking a step, like people taking that hopeful natural progressive step of just being in the league for another year, I think we can easily replace that production. And I'm not that worried about the defensive end. But it's those steps we haven't seen yet, and I'm sure we're going to touch on some of those guys. But
yeah, I mean, I think Porter's looked good preseason. I've liked what I've seen, and I think what you said there is really the key point. One, it's not that you're going to need it all the time in the regular season, but getting the reps with the first unit to keep Michael in the habit of doing it for the second unit, number one, to get points there. And two, for we saw in that Timberwolves game, they were really clamping down and making it very hard to get into your actions. Well, now you can't help as much if all of a sudden we are running our 6'10 shooter off double screens on the other side, and those guys are like, well, Gordon's going to fly for an oop, or Christian's going to cut across my face. These guys are going to double screen. I got bored. Now all of a sudden, it's not people standing there watching and going, I am helping here. And so I think anytime you can get a depth of options in your offense, that is good. Now, are we maybe going to see some more turnovers early in the season because Jokic is used to Porter standing in that corner or standing on that wing and he's maybe moving? Yeah, of course, right? But I think those growing pains are worth it, right? Because we talked about it the championship year. You and I were saying when you have a championship caliber team, every decision you make should be what gives us the best chance to win the title. And you need to get lucky to win the title. You need to have injury luck. You need to have right matchups, right things, all that stuff, right? But having Michael Porter in the zone and a part of this team protects you from some of the Murray liability that I think we should get into next because not been good,
well,
Ryan.
one thing I do want to say about Mike is I think there are two things that are going to be big for him this year, and I think the first thing I'm going to be looking at is his rebounds. And because he does look bigger and he looks fit. And if he can now start to, he's been an inconsistently good rebounder. Like it hasn't been a terrible part of his game, but if he can be consistent and we can play him at the four, like that really opens things up. So it's he I think is a real linchpin to the team, and when I'm talking about that natural development, like that includes him, because I think part of the expressed reason that he put on this weight and why he got in the gym so much is that he wanted to be able to play bigger. So the other thing that I will mention on the Strother point, just to quickly go back to it, which would I only bring up because we're dealing with Michael Malone. But he was also in Denver all summer and practicing with the coaching staff. Strother was, and Malone eats that shit up. So it's if you want some
Yeah.
bonus
And I think
points.
we can get more into Strother when we get to this bench unit, which I think is actually like probably the most interesting bench unit we've had during the Jokic years. Maybe the Michael Beasley when Jokic was still a puppy. Those were fun bench units too. But shout out to Beasley, by the way. Still getting checks in Detroit.
He's still in the league.
I've been really diving into the NBA, and I saw Beasley there, and I was like, oh, he's about to chuck in Detroit. Him and Tobias, baby. But I think Murray, it makes sense to talk about as kind of our last piece. I think Aaron Gordon, quickly, I think he's pretty stable. I think he is who he is right now. I think he's been good in the preseason. I think he'll continue to be good. I think in the playoffs, he will play physical. He will play good defense. And he now is so comfortable in his role that he knows, like, hey, if I'm open for three, I'm going to shoot the three. And he's so good at the dunker spot. He's so good at all that stuff. I think he's pretty comfortable in his role, and he is what he is, right? Murray, let's just get to the reason why so many people, for the first time ever, despite Jokic never having gone under his over-under in the past like 6 years, why so many people are taking under 51.5, and it's Jamal Murray. He was terrible in the Olympics, and his body language has been kind of weird in some of these preseason games. And I don't want to body language doctor him fully, but like some of these ones where he's like, he just looks out of breath. I think the Malone conditioning comment was somewhat thrown at him. As far as like some of these guys don't look in good shape. I think Murray is a concern for me. We're officially on Murray concern watch here, Ryan, because we need him to be not all the time that mother effing Murray, but he has to at least be threatening to make an appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it was much better tonight. He was 5 for 6 from three tonight, and looked a little bit more bouncy. But it is concerning, and the part that's concerning to me is I don't really know why it's this way. Like, it's not the knee anymore. Like, he should be healthy from the knee.
Yep.
He seemed to be hurt in the Olympics, or just didn't really want to like fully play, because they were talking that he was on like a minutes restriction, and there was all sorts of weird stuff going on there. So I'm kind of that I wrote off, sort of. It perked my interest, but I was like, oh, something weird is going on here anyways. And then there was the weird stuff about the World Championships where he just like stopped practicing. Essentially, he was like, "Yeah, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to do that." So I don't know. It's certainly a concern, but I am going to give him like the first month and a half of the season before I really start ragging on him for being bad, because I do think like players play themselves into shape all the time. That shouldn't take very long, whatever. But if we don't start to see glimpses of like Murray that from the championship run, then I'm going to be worried.
Yeah, it's concerning to me because he's always been, all the stories of him and his dad in Canada and couldn't kick him out of the gym, couldn't do any of that. Like it just makes me wonder, like, is some of that wear and tear starting to come back on him,
Those
right?
stories are a long time ago. So
Like, but like you hear about players coming into the NBA, their bodies are just different now because they've been playing so much AAU, so much stuff. They just aren't made to hold up as much. So I do worry about it. I 100% agree with you. I'm going to see it. And I do think this is kind of the perfect Jamal Murray narrative, right? Like I saw some anonymous GM, which by the way, anonymous GM things are the stupidest things on the planet. Number one, like if it's the Pistons GM, do I care what that guy has to say? Like that guy is an idiot, like if it's the Lakers GM, I care what that guy has to say? No. But they were basically saying, I think the Nuggets
I
are in
don't think
trouble.
LeBron is
Murray's
answering
cooked.
any of those surveys.
They said Murray's cooked and Porter is just an offensive one-way player. And I think compared to last year when everyone was like, including us, we were like, dude, this is Murray's year. Like, just be consistent. Let's get an all-star. Let's get this big money. Let's go. He doesn't have the contract on him, but he does kind of have all these doubts from the outside. And I think, barring like some very bad body language or just like lack of effort, I think Murray is very beloved by this fan base. So he doesn't have to worry about like Nuggets fans turning on him in Ball Arena quickly. And I think he kind of does best when there's like a nobody respects me. Oh, I'm crap now. Oh, okay. Like, oh, I suck. Like Porter. Oh, wow, I'm barely in the top 100 players in the NBA. Okay, right. I think this Nuggets team just does a little bit better with that. And
There
I know
should
there
be
was
an
the
edge
famous
to
quote.
them, and I think that that's exciting, right? Like
Yeah,
there should be sort of a like nobody believes in us type of attitude that is happening here because realistically, and I'm sure we're about to talk about the bench, but like I kind of like this team more than last year's team. I don't know if
yeah.
they're going to be better at basketball necessarily, but I like them a lot more. And I think that the potential for them is much, much higher than it was last year. we had known commodities last year. Like we ran the championship team back literally. I mean, we had everybody that we
With
had.
slightly worse parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just to close it on this Brandon thing, I know that Malone had that quote, which I think he's very much being Mike Malone after we lost the preseason game where they said, do you think the guys have an edge now that they've lost the title? And he famously just said, I haven't seen it. And I think that's kind of the story of this team is like Jokic is so easygoing, Murray is so steady that they don't get that worked up. And like, no matter how much Malone kicks and yells, they're not going to give a shit about the preseason. Like, you cannot yell at them enough to make them care. They're like, okay, Malone, take me out of the game, dude. Like, sit me on down, buddy. Uh,
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
so
Jokic was 2 for 5 tonight in 28 minutes. So
yeah,
yeah, he doesn't
yeah.
give a shit.
There was someone at the game. They were talking about Garza, and they said it has to be said the Nugget starters could not be less interested in being here. um, so I do think there's something to that for Murray, but I do think that there's like opening night if Shea comes in and cooks him, I think that bothers Murray, and I think that's something that he takes a little pride in, right? And it felt like last year he was like, "Yeah, I'm among the elite of the point guards," and just this year, no one is clamoring like, "Man, I can't believe Jamal Murray hasn't made an All Star game," right? Like that was the noise last year. No one's saying that now, and I think maybe that's just a little bit better spot for him.
I like that,
All right,
Zag. I think that's I think that's good, and I hope you're right. I hope that he's taking all this shit personally because his name is being slandered out there. Like,
You should.
yeah,
You should, man.
people are not speaking kindly about our boy Jamal.
No, there are people hyping up Ja Morant right now, and Ja's awesome. I'm not crapping on Ja Morant. But if I was Jamal Murray and I was an NBA champion and I had put up a 30-point triple-double in the NBA Finals, and someone was like, yeah, but remember that guy who was good 2 years ago? That the Nuggets absolutely crapped on every time they played them, even when the Grizzlies were at their best. Like, I would be like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. That guy's way better than me. All right, we'll see. Right? I think that's something that hopefully works for him.
Way better
All
at
right.
shotgun willies than Jamal
Yeah.
is. I guarantee you
He's
that.
better and worse.
That picture is iconic, so I can't really.
It is a good one. Put it on a T-shirt, Dan. Sell it out there, Blues for Brothers. Get the merch going. All right, now let's get into the bench. I think this is insanely fun, and I think this bench. I just want to go on the record, Ryan. I am very pro this bench. I think there are going to be some games that this bench absolutely dog walks teams.
Okay,
And
so
there's
let's just define it really quick, though.
who
Who do you think
Strother.
are getting real minutes here?
Okay. Strother is coming off the bench. Russ is our point guard.
Yep.
Okay. Then we have Saric
Yep.
out there. And the ninth person.
It's sort of up for grabs. We're probably not going to go 9 deep. I mean,
Zeke.
You could go Zeke. You could go Vlatko. You could go.
Yeah.
Hunter Tyson has looked sort of tantalizing in moments.
Yeah. You're right, though. It's the Zeke, it's the Hunter, it's the Vlatko.
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? So I think that exactly what you said, we are going to put an absolute crap ton of shooting
Peyton
around
Watson.
us. Oh, yeah, P-Watt.
Yeah.
P-Watt's for sure, right?
We just forgot him.
Brain farted Peyton Watson because he hasn't been playing a lot. He's been dealing with some stuff. And so my early season might not be him.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it is, right? And for all these people talking about us paying Zeke Najee's contract is not the reason we couldn't go get somebody, and he's going to be great trade bait.
That contract is like, it's literally the number that is thrown in every trade. So just be ready.
Calm the hell down and be excited about it. But this team, so minus Watson, it's kind of shooting all around Russ. And Watson was pretty good in the corner last year when he could spot up. Now, like wing or like stepping into it, he didn't have that as part of his game last year. And obviously we haven't been able to see a lot of him in the preseason just with been dealing with some injuries. But Strother long, like not crazy athletic, but pretty good. You've got Watson long. We've got Saric at 3, who's fast. If we pull Porter,
he's not that fast.
For a center.
Yeah.
You watch Nurkic's ass tonight, I'll tell you, Saric is going to look fleet of foot next to that Bosnian goofball. So I think Saric is going to get a ton of open threes. And I think our bench can score, Ryan. Last year we were saying our bench was like all just Peyton Watson, Christian Brown, and those guys just trying to not let the other team score. So when we scored 2 points over 6 minutes, if we could hold them to 8 and just lose by 6, we were doing great. I think this year, there's some times where we're actually going to get the other team to call a timeout because these guys are losing their mind and Russ is saying some wild stuff to some other team's bench players. And the coach is like, I've got to calm my team down. All right. This is old Russell Westbrook. He is in these guys' heads. We're about to throw the ball out of bounds out of fear.
That first 3 threes in a row from Strother just set up from Russell Westbrook dimes. Like
it's old school, just a little underhand back. Like he wants him to cook.
No.
He wants him to cook.
And I I believe in Russell Westbrook. I agree with you 100% on this bench. It's going to be fun as hell. I believe in Russell Westbrook. I mean, I've always been sort of a fan, even when he was incredibly annoying to me
Yeah,
during his peak years. Um, in the stat hunting triple double that will
yeah,
be broken
whatever.
by the real triple double king.
Who
But
cares?
he doesn't care, so it doesn't really matter. Um,
Yeah,
I I think that the to your point about the offense, that was the whole thing last year was can the bench score? Is who on the bench is going to show up tonight? All of those things. That is not going to be a problem. Somebody's going to show up. Whether they show up on the defensive end is a completely different issue. There are going to be some old school like 140 to 136 games this year because there's not going to be a lot of defense played here, unfortunately.
the good thing about that is I think Peyton Watson is still scared of Mike Malone. So is Julian Strouder. So they will still try hard.
Peyton
And
Watson
Russ
and
on ball defensively, Russ is great. Off ball,
things
things
to be
happen. We
desired.
may have seen some Nuggets hit some game winners because Russ lost track of a certain Gary Harris character, but that's fine. That's fine. It's okay.
Yeah. Sarge is another person that I'm really excited about.
He's smart.
He's
He's limited like athletically, and like you said, he's not the fleece, but he's like very smart and moves his feet and he's going to be in the right spot in the rotation. He might not be able to make the play to like contest it or steal it, but you're not going to just get like wide open looks a lot with Sarge.
no, and you can potentially play him at the 5 and Mike at the 4 with this backup unit, which is the real like unlocking of a potential offensive unit. Because it's really just how much time can you buy while Jokic is on the bench? Like when he sits down with at the end of the first quarter, and then he sits down with uh, 7 minutes to go in the third or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Can you stretch those minutes to 2 or 3 instead of having to put him back in 90 seconds later in a playoff game? And the playoffs are what really makes me excited about this bench unit because there's experience. This is not an inexperienced, stupid group of basketball players. Like, there's a good mixture of youth in it but Peyton Watson won a friggin' title. Like, he was
Yeah.
on that championship team. So he's not he's young but and he's going to make stupid mistakes because he is still young,
Yeah.
but he's also been in big moments and seen, been around these type of environments. So it's extremely exciting to me. We're not deep, right? Like if any of these guys go down, it's not going to be a fun stretch. And so we got to knock on wood for health. But it has the potential to be very exciting, and it has the potential to be very different than what Nuggets fans are used to watching. We're used to the bench, minus 25, and Jokic is has the highest on off plus minus of any player in NBA history every year. It seems like so. It's it has the potential to be very different than that, which is exciting.
The other thing that I wanted to say, as far as it being different, is it feels like before the Nuggets teams, the bench unit didn't have their own identity. And Jokic's identity is so strong and pervasive that we had like Mason Plumlee trying to run from the free throw line, like this
He
stuff.
was
And
throwing full court bounce passes.
yeah, like you just had that. And now it feels like Russ is our identity, and Russ is getting the direction of we are going to play fast as hell with this second unit. And Russ is like, I would love to play fast as hell. Like, give me the ball and let me run with these young guys. And so I like that we have a separate identity. And the other thing that I think that you highlighted that's so important is we talked about in the playoffs last year. like you and I were trying to talk ourselves into, can Reggie Jackson get 20 points in a playoff game? Maybe one time on accident? Like
Yeah.
now, like say what you will about Russ's offensive limitations. That guy can drop 20 in a playoff game.
Yes.
Like that guy can absolutely, if he gets going to the rim or he gets the right matchup and you don't have a big enough guard, Russ will absolutely rock the baby and abuse that man
And we're not
and take delight in doing it and emotionally wreck that man
we're not
for the other
talking
side.
about him having to like create this offensive stretch. We're talking about Jokic coming and setting a screen for Russell Westbrook. Like, oh, good luck, honestly. It's a different type of dangerous to Jamal, but there's no reason why Russell can't figure out how to do that, and then you can stagger him for Jamal and let Jokic and Russ run together in the like that is an offensive weapon that Russell has never been able to play with. I mean, there isn't another Jokic in the league, right? So that's sort of
But also, to finish my point on the scoring thing, Strother can score 20. Absolutely. And then I think Saric is a guy that you could absolutely be like, that motherfucker Saric. We left him in the corner, and are you fucking kidding me? This guy couldn't miss out there.
yeah.
Like
All of a sudden, he hits
he
three
has that in him
threes.
to just stand in the corner, and you forget about him, and all of a sudden you're like, well, this game's fucked because Saric hit 4 threes in the first half, and Ball Arena was going crazy, and we were down 20. Like, you know what I mean? Saric had, so we just have a lot of explosive, which I think in today's NBA, your explosiveness matters more than like your ability to just be like a stingy team off the bench. Like offenses are too good. There's too many shooters. Like you're going to have to be able to score eventually. And it feels good that we have that. I'm glad you brought up the Russ with Jokic thing because I think this is going to be interesting to see how Malone handles it. So last year, usually Murray would get taken out first. He'd get taken out like 8:30 left in the first quarter so that he could come back and run it, right? But we don't necessarily want him. I mean, he can be off ball because he was off ball next to Reggie. He can be off ball. And I don't know if that's something that he likes with his knee and with his injury stuff. Because, like you said, the best version of this team is Porter gets the early sub and we say Jokic can help our team move along enough in the regular season that bench unit, we have Saric, Porter, Straw, Watson, and Ross. And we are going to score. Like, we're going to get transition threes for Strother and Porter all the time. And good luck. But it does cannibalize our starters a little bit. And Porter is relied upon for shooting. You know, you're kind of putting both your shooters with the second team, which I don't think is terrible. You could also do double early subbing, right? You could take Murray and Porter early, but that feels like a hard ask for Jokic there. So how do you see our rotations going? Do you still think Murray gets the early sub, or do you think we maybe move Porter to the earlier sub to try to get him kind of some of those 4 minutes? How do you see the rotations breaking down?
I think Murray is still going to get the early sub.
The early yank.
Yeah.
Because the benefit of that is what you talked about. Russell gets to get going off of playing a 2-man with Jokic. Like, and Russell is going to be better off of the dribble handoff from the wing or, you know, like coming around Jokic there. That's where he's going to kill you, is because that little 15-footer, Russ has always had that.
No,
pretty
it's money. It's like when you were talking about that's the thing you miss from KCP. I'm like, well, Russ does that at like a KCP-esque level.
And once he gets comfortable with it, he's going to realize it and he's going to start attacking it.
He shot the ball way better.
Subbing Russ in early, you can kind of get him going offensively, but then, you know, you give him one less option probably if you're subbing Porter out late.
Yeah, I mean, Porter has played a lot of like the whole first quarters, and then he gets just like sort of forgotten on the bench for like 8 minutes in the second quarter.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting thing for Malone because he's always tried to hide the bench so much, and like he's always had to sort of stagger them in interesting ways to make sure that somebody could create that was on the floor. But this bench unit, like we're talking about, sort of provides you different options. So it'll be interesting to see if we know anything. He's going to figure he already has something figured out, and we won't see anything different for the entire year. So
For the first month and a half, at
yeah,
least, like you said,
yeah.
there will be no rotation changes, which I don't hate with letting Russ get comfortable, letting Russ. I think it's so important that that team has the Russ identity for the bench. I think that's so key.
I think he's
Um,
going to have his fingerprints all over this team, and all the reports are. I mean, Russ is a beloved teammate wherever he goes. You will not find a teammate that didn't like playing with Russ, and reportedly, it's all very similar here. So that veteran presence, like when people bitched and moaned about Jeff Green because he was such a good presence, like we have Jeff Green esque talent on the team right now. Like Russ is in that sort of. Jeff Green was incredibly frustrating for some of those games, and he would just brick shit and have a defensive lapse. But he also played unbelievable and was a big reason why we got to the point that we got to. So you know, uh,
yeah. I think the comparison I'm going to make here is like when Jeff Green made a mistake, you could look at Jeff Green and not know that Jeff Green made a mistake. When you looked at players last year on our bench and they messed something up, you knew they messed something up. You could have been looking away, getting a beer, getting your food, whatever, and you look back and you'd go, Christian just messed up. Like, I can tell you, old Christian is disappointed in himself right now. And so Jeff was just going to kind of play his role and do his thing. And if it didn't go in, it didn't go in. Or like, if he messed something up, he messed something up. But he's like, I know my role. I'm confident in my role. I'm going to be able to do this role. And it feels like Russ makes a lot of things fall into place to where I really like what you said of we were subbing to try to get a creator. And now we're just subbing to get spot up shooters. And I think it's easier to find guys who have spot up shooting because as much as people talk about the lack of shooting, like, I mean, Murray Porter, like Strother, Hunter Tyson's a good
we
shooter.
just have to shoot.
Saric is good. Like
We have to
we don't
shoot
have
more
guys
of
who are
them.
gonna.
It's a
We're not
volume
gonna
issue.
have guys who run off screens, but stand still if you get Russ in the lane and kick. Yeah, we have guys who are gonna knock the stuff down.
It's a volume thing though. We just have to shoot more of them. It's not. It's
Which is why the pace,
yeah.
right? And I think we're headed towards a great direction with that. All right, we've gone on now 45 minutes of the here. So I think it's time, Ryan. 51 and a half is the Nuggets over under. Last year we told you the previous 2 years actually, we've been like, hey, just put your mortgage on the over. Like this is wild. Just get the over. And the over has cashed. 51 and a half, Ryan. What say you here?
I think this is an over again. I don't.
Yeah.
The West is really good, which is the hard part about this. It's a deep conference, so it's going to be tough sledding. But honestly, like I don't know that Jokic has had a more talented team. So it's I don't know. He wins a lot of regular season games, so this number feels a little insulting, honestly, and it's gone down. I think so. People have definitely been betting the under, which worries me a little bit. Maybe I'm too close to it, but uh, I hate over unders, so I won't be betting on this. But I
Yeah.
think if you like
For the
an over
podcast.
under, you should do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I'm joining you here. I think when you just have an all-time player, I think Jokic took that Faco team that you talked about and he won 50 games with them. Like I think Jokic is just going to get you night after night. He's going to get you enough.
That was without Jamal
And
Murray, by the way.
correct.
and
And so
and
now,
mostly without Michael Porter Jr. as well. So
yes. And a guy who I disagree with sometimes, but I think he has some good takes. But Jason Tim from the Volume Sports Podcast, he talked about why he's taking the over and why he's picking the Nuggets to come out of the West. And he goes, look, he said, the last time we saw the Nuggets fully healthy, he said, they steamrolled everyone. He's like, it wasn't close. People try to make it seem like they didn't play anybody. He's like, they played LeBron, they played KD, they played they played Ant, they played Carl Towns, they played Jimmy. He's like, and they weren't even remotely threatened. He's like, last year, everything went wrong health wise. He goes, and they were up 20 at home in game 7 to go to the Western Conference Finals. He's like, if that's your floor, that's pretty good floor.
Yeah.
And I think that floor gets you to 52 wins. So I would take the over here as well. Real quickly, Ryan, I wanted to go, what is your biggest threat to the Nuggets in the West? Are you a Thunder believer this year? Where are you going?
I think the Thunder are going to be really good, particularly in the regular season. I think they're going to be really good. But I don't know. I think the Mavs are going to be good as well. I'd probably go in between those two. Lean Thunder at this point.
Can I give you my upset pick?
Yeah, I can see you got something cooking.
Yeah. The Thunder, I agree with you. I think the Thunder are going to be a top regular season team. I don't love them in the playoffs. I think
I also
a
don't
lot of their
love that
points, they're kind of
Hartenstein
like,
is starting off with a 5 to 6 week hand injury. Like,
correct. I also just think like a lot of their guys, and they can be very good regular season players, but we saw in the playoffs, like, oh, you're having a tough time. And then I think we see this a lot with guys who get a lot of foul baiting, are very good at it in the regular season. When it gets more physical, like Shea just loses 5 points. The refs are just like, I'm not going to call that shit. Like that, it's Wednesday in OKC, sure, you can have that in January, but I'm not calling that. And so the team that I think, and they could absolutely crash and burn, but the team that I think has the highest ceiling that no one's talking about is the Pelicans. I think the Pelicans absolutely have the ability to. They need a big man because they even though Valanciunas was not the greatest player in the world, he was a body, and you can't be in the West and not have somebody for Jokic or, and expect to make it out. But Zion in shape, Ingram, they've got McCollum, they've got Herb Jones, like they have kind of a lot of talent, Ryan. And don't forget, before Zion went down, they were right in the running for that first seed. Like,
yeah, I'm a
I just
firm wait and see on Zion. Like, he's just gonna have to prove it to me. You're not wrong. They're fun. They're also like Brandon Ingram is trade bait. Like, he could definitely get dealt this year. So if they're good,
also
they have options to get better potentially too. So it's not a bad shout.
with Towns being traded, they're the team I think I least want to see in the playoffs.
We hate playing Zion.
Now, not just Zion, Ingram gives us the business too. That guy, he's been loving just giving it to the Nuggets ever since Christmas Day. I think that was 4 or 5 years ago now. Like Ingram always shows up for us. Now they do have the problem of they would have to play CJ McCollum at some point, and we are going to find him and put him in every pick and roll but
and they're also relying on a Zion health here, which
yeah,
is
100%.
a very risky bet at this point.
Yep. But he has looked very slim. I like this new slim Zion look quite a bit. And then I think wrapping it up now, we're getting close to the hour mark. Let's just give our finals predictions here. I can go first. I'm going what we should be getting as a trilogy. Like the Celtics just kind of pooped the bed 2 years ago versus the Heat, and we should have gotten Nuggets Celtics. And then last year, the Nuggets were too tired to make it there, but we should have gotten Nuggets versus the Celtics. I think this is the year we get it right. I think we get Nuggets versus Celtics, and I think we have an awesome finals. I think it's just going to be unreal, and I am going to take the Denver Nuggets.
Oh.
The vibes, Ryan. Right now, you know me. Last year, I did not believe in the Nuggets at all. Like even at the All-Star break, I was picking us to get. I said I did not have us getting out of the second round when we did our playoff review. Like I did not like the vibes. I didn't like it. I'm kind of in love with the vibes this year, Ryan. It, like you said, it feels like we have the right amount of youth trying to prove something and veterans who want the ring, but who haven't been there, who have like been in battles, but haven't gotten the ring. So they're just like, dude, whatever you need me to do, coach. Like I will, what, Russell Westbrook will absolutely fight Anthony Edwards if it means he can get a ring. Like he'll be like, so you just need me to get us both kicked out every game. I will absolutely do that, Coach Malone. That is no problem. Like
it's well, this is a terrible sign because I have the exact same thing. It's.
I mean, the Celtics feel inevitable in the East.
This, yeah, everybody's high on Philly. I think they're gonna suck.
No, dude. Joel's saying he's not going to play back-to-backs ever. Paul George is already hurt.
Yeah,
no.
And the Knicks are going to be fine, but I actually think they got worse probably with that trade. Like, I don't want Cat on my team. So I don't know. The East feels like it's definitely going to be the Celtics, and
yeah.
I think the Timberwolves were the biggest threat, and I think their threat level went significantly down with that trade. So I think the Nuggets are well positioned, and I'm going to be a homer and pick them to win because
let's go.
That's
baby.
the most fun for me.
Oh my God, if we can get 2-3 plus we take out the defending champion of the Celtics, I don't know what I'll do with myself, Ryan. But this podcast will be a thrill on every step of the journey.
You didn't you kind of poo-pooed this earlier in the podcast, but I think that there's not value in Jokic to win the MVP right now, but there is going to be a point this season when there is value in it, and I'm going to bet it. This is the year that I bet it because I hate futures, but I never bet on these things. But if I start to get a tingly sensation that he's going to win another one, I'm making money on it this time. I'm not going to be sitting on the sidelines again wishing I had bet on the plus 800 Jokic MVP odds with Jaws having an unbelievable October, but we're 13 and 3.
It's Shea, right? It's Shea's the threat. Shea is the threat to me.
Yeah, I guess.
Shea, Luka on some level too. It feels like after he made the finals, he could get acknowledged. But I think Dallas is actually going to have a weird year. Like, people forget, it's not like Dallas was like, wow, what a regular season team. This Dallas team, number one coming in. Like,
no.
They kind of ran into some good matchups, and they ran into a Timberwolves team that threw everything at us because they're a bunch of nerds designed to just beat one man.
Yeah, well, it's Tim Conley punishing us for winning the championship after he left us.
Jeez, what a nerd. All right. Well, go Nuggets. I can't wait to watch this season. We are going to be back next week. We'll have Broncos talk. We'll be previewing the Panthers game, which is, if you look at the games after that Panthers game, you can't lose to the Panthers at home. So it's a weirdly pivotal game. And then we'll have some Nuggets talk to talk about. We'll have real games going on. And the Nuggets kick off versus the Thunder. And I think that's going to be an unbelievably fun game. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be a very enjoyable way to start the season.
Yeah. Let's go basketball. Let's go Nuggets. And like and subscribe to the podcast. Let's go.
Vamos a Nuggets. Bye.
Lucifer Brothers is a Crab Shell Media podcast.